Hey, what's up? This is Bridget with Created to Conquer. It's good to be with you. I'm excited to talk with you today about thoughts and the source of the thoughts you have in your mind that you don't like. Have you ever had a weird thought? Obviously, if you're watching my video, my channel, then you've had some intrusive thoughts that you don't like, right? By intrusive thoughts, I mean thoughts that feel like they are an intruder in your mind, right? You don't want them. They cause fear, they cause worry, they cause sleeplessness, they cause loneliness or sadness or general anxiety disorder. So thoughts, the ones we don't like, can be intrusive. They can be like intruders in our mind. Well, today we're going to talk about the source of thoughts and where they come from. Now, maybe the things I'm about to say to you are things that will take you by surprise. You've never heard them before. But remember, if you've tried lots of things and it hasn't worked for you, you might as well listen to this and start to think about things differently. Because what I'm going to share with you, there are things I learned from the Bible. And listen, there was a time in my life when I did not believe in the Bible. I was not a Christian. I didn't care. But let me tell you, when other people couldn't help me, when no doctor could help me, when no friend could help me, when no counselor could help me, I am telling you, God just like swooped into my situation, and he was invited. And I had to invite him, right? We got to make our lives open to him if we want his help. But he swooped into my situation and he taught me things that literally turned my life around. And so I'm teaching you how to be free from the whole list of things we've talked about, but without medication. And we're not talking about just treating the symptoms. We're not just dealing with the symptoms of the hard things we face, the battle of the mind that we face, but we're talking about getting down to the root. So that's what I offer you today. We are getting to the root of the problem and not just learning, oh my gosh, this is what I do if I feel like I'm going to have a panic attack. You know what? In future videos, we'll talk about what to do if you're on the verge of a panic attack. But let's talk about doing something that can keep you from having a panic attack at all. That's what I want to do. But first, I've got to lay a foundation for you, okay? You've got to understand the root of the problem. You've got to understand why you got the way you got. And I believe I can teach you that way. I can teach you those things through looking at thoughts, how they come into our mind, looking at the source of them. So the first thing I want to say to you is, have you ever had a weird thought? Now, if you're listening to me, we know you've had fearful thoughts, okay? Ignore the fly. But if I have a weird thought or I have a fearful thought, I need you to know that not every thought you have is actually your thought. There are some thoughts that come into our mind from an outside source, okay? So I am not my thoughts. You know, if you have thoughts about suicide, thoughts about taking your own life, maybe you're watching today and you're so angry with someone, you've actually thought about taking someone else's life. Well, I hope not, but there are some of you out there that you've been there. You need to recognize that that thought does not come from you. It does not come from who you are. It's actually a suggestion from something outside of who you are, okay? Now listen to this. Remember, any thoughts I'm having that are causing pain, sleeplessness, insomnia, whatever, it's not necessarily me. Now listen to this. You got to understand this first. Now, as a human being, you are a spirit first and foremost. You have a soul and you live in a body. I know this from a book in the Bible. It's in the back half of the Bible. It's called 1 Thessalonians. It says, "And may your spirit, soul, and body be preserved, sound and complete, found blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ." So from this verse, I can learn a lot of things, but that's one main thing we need to look at today. You are a spirit, you have a soul, you live in a body. We call that a tri-part being. So there are three parts to me. Even though you only see the body part of Bridget, I'm actually three parts. So my spirit man is the biggest part of me. When God talks to me, when I hear his still small voice, sometimes we would call that like your intuition or just knowing, and it's God-given. He does that through my spirit. I am a spirit. I have a soul, which is my mind, my will, and my emotions. And ladies, we know all about emotions. And we all know that every human being has free will. So in my soul is my mind, will, and emotions. And then the third thing mentioned was my body. So when we see another person, we're looking at their body. So I'm a tripart being. I am a spirit, I have a soul, and I live in a body. Okay, now this is important because you know what? We do have an enemy. if you like to think about it or you don't. Think about it. Every movie that was ever produced, isn't there a battle between good and evil? You know, movies are always based on real life. I think that. I think movies, no matter how far out they are, they're probably based on something that is reality in one form or another. Okay, so even in the movies, there's a battle between good and evil. Well, in real life, there's a battle between good, God, and a battle between evil, which is the devil. So God is the leader of the good movement, if you will, and the devil is the leader of the evil movement. Okay? So listen, I said to you one time before, John chapter 8, verse 44 talks about how the devil is a liar. He's the father of lies. He can't even say anything that's true because there is no truth in him. So when he speaks of his own nature. He is a liar. And you know what? I want to submit to you today. Think about this. The enemy lies to us. He gets access to our mind through our thoughts. Remember, I've talked about fear thoughts. They have a source. The source is not necessarily you. There are weird thoughts we have, fear thoughts we have, intrusive thoughts we have. They don't necessarily come from you. Your thoughts actually have 3 different sources. Maybe it is you. Maybe the thought does come from Bridget. But the thought can come from God as he communicates to you through your spirit. Or the thought can actually come from the devil. How do I know this? Well, when Judas Iscariot, most people, even if you're not a Christian, you know that Judas Iscariot was the one that betrayed Jesus with a kiss. Well, the Bible says, I believe it's in the book of John, don't quote me on that, but I think it is. The Bible actually says that the devil put it in his heart. In other words, he put it in his thinking to betray Jesus. So we have an example in the Bible of how the devil can kind of like inject thoughts into your mind. So every thought that you have is not your own thought. Now, there's a man I like to read. I like to read his work. He's no longer living, but he was a pastor, reverend type, and he had a church in the great state of Oklahoma. Never met him, but I've loved reading his books. And one thing he explained was that, and he was talking about we are a spirit, we have a soul, we live in a body. He explained that it's important to understand the nature of man because the devil works through the soul and the body to try to wreak havoc in the lives of human beings. Let me say that for you one more time. He explained that we have to understand the nature of man, which is what I'm trying to do for you right now, because the devil works through the soul and the body, not the spirit, because that's how God communicates to us, but through the soul and the body to try to wreak havoc in your life, in my life. And remember what I said before. It's like there's that door in my mind. I can open the door to the good thoughts, but I can keep the door closed to the bad thoughts, right? So I ask you to think about that. If you've never thought about that before, that's okay. But listen, if you're here, it's time to look at this thing in a new light, because remember, I'm giving you the tools to live your life free from all this stuff without medication and not looking at the symptom only and how to stop a symptom, but how to get down to the root of the problem and pull the thing out at the root. Okay, now I have started a book about the very things I'm making these videos about. And I want to read to you a paragraph from my book, okay? Here it is. Perhaps you're wondering how Satan gets into your life. Well, the devil can influence us through wrong thinking and wrong suggestion. He gains entrance through our thought life, like I just said to you. He makes a suggestion to us through our thoughts, and we embrace it, sometimes without even realizing what we're doing. If you're not aware of his mission, then it's easy to fall prey to his plan. When he discovers that a thought bothers you, he keeps persisting all the more. How does he know when something bothers you? If certain thoughts bother you enough, you will inevitably begin to talk about them with someone else. Satan can't read your mind, but he learns about what bothers you by listening to what you say to other people. If you're like me, when I first started having all this fear stuff going on inside of me, I didn't really want to tell anybody because I thought they would think I was crazy. You know, sometimes mental disorders get a bad rap, right? People automatically assume something about you if you struggle with anxiety or depression or the like. So anyway, you know, I was hesitant to talk about it. But as I got older, I was reaching out for help, but it was going on inside of me, right? And then I started to give voice to it. So the devil can't read your mind. God knows you through and through. He created you and he knows the thought. The Bible teaches us before we've even had it. But not so with the devil. He understands what bothers us by listening to what we say to other people, right? So if you have a fear thought, I would close the door on that fear just as fast as I can. Don't start talking about it to other people, because he knows what bothers you and what doesn't, because of the things you're always saying, because of the things you're giving voice to. So this is an introduction into understanding where your thoughts come from. There's definitely more to come, but I want to encourage you today. You got to know the source of your trouble. Now, not always. I like to say, you can make mistakes in life and you can suffer the consequences of making a bad choice. Like if you decide to rob a bank and you suffer the consequence for that, you did that yourself. But there are times when the devil is behind the trouble that we have in life, okay? Especially fear thoughts, especially being scared, especially having anxiety, especially worrying that you're never going to make it, especially things like that, okay? So we have to understand the source of those wrong thoughts and those wrong thinking, and that kind of wrong thinking. This is Bridget with Created to Conquer. If you like what I have to say, if you're getting something from it, please go ahead and hit subscribe and ring the little bell. And just remember, you were created to conquer, and I am absolutely here to help you do it.